Hello fellow Minecrafters, Gearsaw Studios here. Today I'm going to teach you how to beautify a pre-existing build, because a beautiful house looks a lot better than a not so beautiful house. But before I start this, remember, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out, and if you really want to, ring the bell. It will make you notified every time I upload a video. Now, on to the tutorial. Not all builds are the same, so you might have to fill in the blanks of this tutorial for yourself. But for today, I'm going to start off with this box house. We're going to beautify this box house. As of right now, it has no detailing and is rather small. So let's improve it. The first part of beautifying a build is choosing what blocks you want to use. Make sure that the blocks look good with what you're building. So for what I've done for this is I'm going to use various things of cobblestone, oak of its log and plank form, and some birch. Now that we have our palette down, let's begin. So, the first part is giving it a sort of frame. So what I'm going to do here is place down 2 blocks. Make sure that they all are level at the same part, otherwise it may look rather weird. Now that that's done, what you should do is start placing alternating lines of blocks. This will look a lot better than just a plain old foundation, but it might not be the best for your specific build. Now that I have done this on all sides, you may think that it looks wrong with what you're doing. So, you can always make changes like this, because I'm not looking for a castle feeling. I'm looking for more of a cozy house, which looks a lot better when you don't have as sharp lines. Just remember, you can always redo something if you don't like it. Now, we have to do the entrance. The entrance can sometimes be a little difficult, especially if you're working with unflat terrain. However, a good trick is to just make a little adjustment. You place 2 blocks there, and you place your 4 blocks, and then you do this, and then you cover the sides, and then you put your own touches to it, like this. Sometimes you can make mistakes, which is always okay. You can always fix those mistakes later, like I'm doing right now. If you make a mistake, sometimes it gives you a good idea. Such as if you make something wrong on one side, it might look better than original if you put it on both sides. Another thing is lighting. Lighting is always important when doing building. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a little lamp post. It doesn't have to be anything particularly fancy. However, if it's more detailed, the better it is. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to install some lanterns. Which you cannot place on the underside of slabs, so make sure to make it a full block or a double slab. Might not look the best, however, it is definitely a significant improvement. Now that that's done, we should start working on the actual house. So on the interior, it's pretty basic, but the ceiling, the floor, and the walls are all the same block. So the first step is choosing one of your secondary blocks to make the floor, like this. Remove your flooring and replace it with a different block. It looks better if this block is lighter than your walls, such as oak and birch. It can take a while to remove your flooring, but don't be discouraged. If you grab an axe if it's wood or a pickaxe if it's stone, it will be gone in no time. Now that that's done, replace the floor with your secondary block, which is birch in this case. Now that that's done, it already looks a little bit better. So back to the outside. It looks a little drab without windows. So let's add some windows. The corner is a good place to put a frame for some sort of like section of your house so you can make windows. In this case, it's not going to be 2 stories. So remember to take that into account on how many stories you have on your building. It might not look the best, but remember, make edits as you go. So we have a little bit of a frame, but now looking at this, you may realize you might need another block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place logs. Logs always look good if you're building with wood. So keep that in mind when you're building. Logs can be a little difficult to get, so you might want to watch one of my other tutorials, which can teach you how to get logs very quickly. So we have logs in. Now what we should do is we should get some glass. Break 2 blocks and place it in. You might have to reorganize your interior depending on where you're putting it. Now upon closer inspection, it looks a little bit better now with the windows. But make sure to install your frames, because if you don't install your frames, it might look wrong. Building can be pretty difficult, but it's always worth a try. Already, this building is looking a little bit better than when we started. However, you need to add the frames on all sides. Don't be afraid to put down markers if you can't understand where to put something, such as some sort of block that can be easily counted how many they are. Because sometimes it can be a little bit hard to keep track of where to put stuff when you're building. So now we have this. It's not the best, but let's improve. You might want to add a 3rd block in order to match your logs. Spruce works good with oak logs. So you could always take spruce in order to match. Your hotbar sometimes can get cluttered, so remember, keep a chest nearby when building in order to save yourself some aggravation. Now it's already looking a little bit better yet again. The windows do look a little strange on the interior, but sometimes what looks good on the exterior doesn't work good on the interior, so be prepared to make some adjustments if you feel like it. Now, another thing you should do is you should make a different block for the lowermost block of your walls. This will provide a little bit more texture to your building. Sometimes you might have to move your chest and other utilities depending on where you put them. And sometimes you might break a couple too many blocks. But Doing building often involves a lot of mistakes. So now that that's done, inspect for any mistakes you may have done, like that. Now, the building looks a bit more detailed than originally. So, you might want to add an extension. An extension will give you a little bit more room to work with inside of your base. If you plan to use it for longer, maybe make the extension bigger, or just the base bigger. Remember to tidy up all the details when you go. Or if you're going to make a big change, you should definitely tidy up the details. It will save you some time later. So now that we have this, let's install a couple more windows. However, if you want to make an extension, maybe leave one side without windows, so that way you can install a ladder if need be. So let's start the extension. Start mapping out an area of where you want the extension. I think I'm going to do it on this corner of the building. Now that my extension is marked out, start building a frame. Remember to add the lower parts of the walls like you did earlier. Now that that's done, carry over the style of what you've been using on the last part over to the extension. Now that I have mostly completed the second floor extension, make sure to go back and tidy up some of the details that you don't find favorable, such as this one. Cleaning it up might look better for you. It's everybody's own opinion, so it's up to you. So now that we have this, on the second floor, try not to have don't have the ceiling also be your floor unless you want to make it double thick. Because if you make the floor here birch, part of the ceiling will be birch, and that will not look good. So, and also, if your ceiling is the same as your floor, it also looks a bit amateurish. So remember to keep these details in mind. So now that we've done this, let's focus a little bit on the interior again. If you have a small section and you don't know what to fill it with, make it your bedroom, like this. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant or complicated. It can just be as simple as this. Flower pots work amazing for bedrooms. However, sometimes being asymmetrical is better than being symmetrical. So if you want to add flower pots, consider only adding one. Now you have a little bedroom inside of this small extension. On top of being on the second floor, it might seem like it's a downside because it's harder to get to, but if there's monsters outside, it's less likely to interrupt your sleeping. So, the higher up your bed is, often the better. Now it's time for the hard part, building a roof. Roofs can be hard because there's so many shapes and sizes of what you can do. So, a little trick I know is you should make it so it has like a distinct frame and it goes up by a certain amount of blocks. Scaffolding using blocks or actual scaffolding can be really helpful here because it's hard to get on top of your build if you didn't build like a staircase on the outside. So for this part, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 4 blocks up using spruce stairs. Having your distinct frame thing that goes with your logs is what you should do for the parts of the roof you're doing. Never use your 4 colors for the roof because that will look distinctly rather weird. So just repeat what you're doing for this roof on all 4 sides. Now that's done, what you should do is remove all the scaffolding blocks used for placing down your roof. Upon closer inspection of my roof, the various corners of the roof don't necessarily line up. So what you should do in this case is you should add another layer that connects to all of them. So now that that's done, destroy your scaffolding and make your wall block, or any block of your choice, the middle of your roof, like this. For the bottommost part of your roof, you should use your frame again and connect everything up at the bottom and top only. Now, any other part of your roof that isn't filled in should be filled in with the block you used to fill in the middle, which in my case is oak stairs. Now for the middle, just place one of the block you use for your walls. Now we have a cute little house. However, we have to do something about the roof right here, because it wouldn't look good flat necessarily. So this is where a nice handy tool comes in. Balconies. Because balconies can be used as a substitute for a roof. What you should do is, if you want to have a balcony, choose a spot that isn't part of your frame in order to put a door. It can also be your window, but you'll have to destroy the window. Now for this, you can either use a fence or stairs or full blocks, but I'm going to use stairs. I might change this decision later, depending on what looks good. Now that we've done that, we've saved us a little time with the roof. We'll focus on the balcony later, but for the roof, let's do what we did for the last part, but to a lesser extent. Make sure that it lines up to your frame before, otherwise it will look a little strange. Now, this may go wrong depending on what your building is, so it might not be the wisest choice to do this. However, due to a lack of better ideas, I'm going to do this. And remember, fill in the top. And make sure it doesn't cover all your windows, because that will certainly redundate those windows. Now that's done, let's move back onto the balcony. You should try making little chairs like this, and possibly some sort of table in between them, but you might need to move your chairs. Choosing chair locations can sometimes be pretty hard. However, I believe this would be a good location for chairs. Now, try adding a sort of middle ground so that they can have a table. A block that might look good would be some smooth stone. Just a nice, genuine looking block. Now you can also use a flower pot to simulate like a cup, or you could put a flower in it in order to make it an actual flower pot, like here. So now that that's done, the last portion of this tutorial is coming. What we need to do is we need to fill in those little details. If you look here, you'll see that there's dirt under our foundation. If there's exposed dirt, try replacing it with your foundation block to make it look a little bit better. Otherwise, your building might look like it's not properly supported. So now the building is done on the exterior. Now we have to focus a little bit on the downstairs interior. So there isn't too much of what one could do here. But try to move your utilities to not block the windows. Because if they block the windows, you can't use the windows. Unstacked things also look a little bit better. However, aren't as space efficient. Now for these chests, it might be hard for you to move them depending on what you've done. But moving them towards an area that doesn't have windows, or just moving them so they don't cover the windows, will be good. Like this. You can have your things that you use a lot for crafting here and storage here. So that you have a good amount of storage in this area. So the tutorial is finished. We have turned a simple box house into a nice looking, beautiful house. What you should do now is if you place down a pallet, destroy it, and if you had a chest lying around for your materials, you should also move it so it doesn't obscure the view. One last thing I forgot earlier, add a door onto your balcony. Otherwise, monsters that could spawn on your balcony might spawn there. And for the final detail of this tutorial, make sure to light up your builds. No one wants to be attacked by monsters inside their builds. And make sure that you don't see the inside of a roof, because inside of roof does not look good for a ceiling. So just cover it. And before you completely seal it, place a torch. You don't want to be hearing spider noises in your ceiling while you're hanging around your base. So that's it, guys. If you liked the tutorial, remember, please give me a big fat thumbs up and subscribe if you really enjoyed it. If you subscribe, ring the bell. You get notified every time I release a new video /tutorial. I was Gearsaw. Gearsaw out.